You will discuss with us UK transport policy and the Renewable Transport Fuel Obligation scheme.
Yes, that's
right.
right. Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Aysha Ahmed, and I lead the Advanced Biofuels Programme at the Department for Transport in the UK. So a little bit of background to the UK biofuels policy. The policy is very much driven by climate change and carbon budgets. Transport's currently the biggest emission or greenhouse gas emissions sector at the moment, as has been mentioned previously, currently accounting for about 33% of greenhouse gas emissions in the UK in 2018. There is a focus on greenhouse gas savings, and we look to promote sustainable biofuels with the highest possible greenhouse gas savings. And also we're trying to transition more towards waste-based biofuels. This one shows us our carbon budgets set over the next few years, dropping every year, of course, with the biggest shocker here being that it's zero in 2050. Biofuels policy is embedded into a lot of our wider strategies in the UK, including Road to Zero and the aviation strategy. In the Road to Zero strategy, it sets a comprehensive plan to support the move to zero emission vehicles and electrification. But despite this increase in electric vehicles, which we know will be the future, there is still a known fact that it's going to be a big demand for liquid transport fuels in the coming decades. And there is a need to focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the modes of transport that are more difficult to electrify, including aviation and heavy goods vehicles. So a little bit about the Renewable Transport Fuel Obligation. It is our main policy instrument in the UK for promoting biofuels, and it's been in place since 2008. It's a volume-based target mechanism. The target, for example, in 2019 is 8.5%. The obligation is met through tradable certificates given per litre of renewable fuel produced. And it includes flexibilities for meeting the obligations, such as things like buyout, and you can carry over your certificates, carry over your obligation. Fuels made from waste and residues are eligible for double certificates, so more than the traditional crop or traditional biomass-based biofuels. And fuels need to comply with sustainability and greenhouse gas savings criteria. So far, the UK has been successful in meeting the obligations. As you can see in the diagram here, that waste-based biofuels have actually been superseded the use of traditional biofuel. And we've also made some significant savings on greenhouse gases due to the uptake of these fuels. So a bit about the changes to the strategy and policy in 2018. So in 2018, we implemented a set of changes to the RTFO, and these included setting targets, increasing the targets up to 2020 and 2030. There's a specific target for the introduction of development fuels. We introduced a crop cap, updated the greenhouse savings thresholds, and updated definitions and the reporting obligations. So the target to 2032, which has been set, has more than doubled actually to that point, which we hope should set a clear investment signal into the use of waste-based biofuels. It's set to 2032 to align with the carbon budget cycle. There's an additional development fuels target. It's combined with the traditional target, so that's set to 12.4%. I believe in 2032, that is equivalent to about 2.8%, which is going to be coming from the development fuels. So what are development fuels? Just really quickly, development fuels must be made from a sustainable waste or residue, but this excludes segregated oils and fats and energy crops and crops. And the qualifying fuels in this category are aviation fuel, hydrogen, renewable SNG, and fuels that can be blended or dropped in. And the buyout price for these certificates is 80 pence per litre. As to say, it's £1.60, so it's double for the development fuels. So it's quite high. And the development fuels, they're fuels of strategic importance to the UK for sectors that are difficult to electrify. So as I said, including aviation and the HGVs and even maritime. And the goal is to stimulate investment into the technologies required to increase uptake in of these fuels. Currently, we have 2 competitions running which aim to support the development of these technologies. We've got the ABDC, the Advanced Biofuel Demonstration Competition, which was set up in 2014. It was looking at technologies around the 5 to 6 TRL level. And the goal was to save about 60% greenhouse gas compared to the fossil fuel equivalent. And the second competition, the Future Fuels for Flight and Freight competition, this was launched in 2016, and it was aimed specifically at aviation and freight, and the TRL level was slightly higher as well. We're currently just finished stage 1 and about to make an announcement on stage 2, in which one of the companies will come forward and start receiving funding to spend on capital build. I also mentioned the crop cap. We've introduced the crop cap, which is looking to decrease from 4% in 2020 down to 2% in 2032. The reason being is that we want to incentivize the use of waste-based biofuels. And we implemented Article 7A from the Fuel Quality Directive. So this was looking at a greenhouse gas mechanism with a target of 6% in 2020. And they were reporting requirements on the origin of transport fuels in order to monitor the carbon intensity. And so on to the next steps and I suppose future challenges of how we get there. We're about to launch a transport decarbonisation plan. It's a whole plan just for the whole of transports across the UK. Just to talk about what we've done so far, in 2017, we launched the Road to Zero, Maritime 2050, light rail and other rapid transport call for evidence, consultation on E10, also implemented fuel labelling just to get that to align with the EU. The last mile, so that's things like scooters and bikes just to get you to your destination at close range. The future of mobility, which is our urban strategy, and the Aviation 2050 Green Paper, which is the first step of the aviation strategy, just to get views on what we were proposing. In 2019, so later this year, all depending, of course, on our purdah period due to the elections coming up, we're hoping to publish our carbon offsets for transport call for evidence, the Clean Maritime Plan, and the Aviation White Paper. And then, as I said, early next year, at some point next year, we'll be publishing our transport decarbonisation plan, which will, of course, take elements of all of these consultations that we've currently published. I suppose in terms of challenges coming, it's very important that we continue to work with industry. We continue to work with academia and bodies such as Supergen. Our relationship with the Supergen Bioenergy Hub at the moment is more important than ever as we really look to research. It's key in meeting these 2050 decarbonisation net zero goals that we have. Thank you.